with our captivating weekly news features. Every day, we are breaking new grounds with informative, entertaining, and inspiring human interest stories. On Mondays, 9 p.m., we have The Cabinets. Tuesday, 9 p.m., we get inside the barracks for military tales. We delve in the world of cinemas and theater each Wednesday night. For the young and industrious, make a date with us every Thursday at 9 p.m. Fridays are dedicated for my culture. On Saturdays, we go back in time for history in perspective. And on Sundays, we get to know the process of how things are done and made. KBC Channel 1 News features a whole lot of wonderful viewing experience.
Uangalie tu biashara ikifa hivi mbele macho yako.
Mimi sitakubali kuchukua pesa zangu niekeze kwenye mahali ambako najua kuna waizi.
Our house is like a hot kitchen. Lazima nyinyi muanze kusuluhisha issue zenu ndio mtoto aweze kusaidika.
Kwa nini mgombana mbele ya mtoto?
Kuna mwanamke mwingine.
So this time around things are different.
Hello there. We are glad that you're up and early to join us on this 11th day of October 2022. It's Good Morning Kenya on KBC Channel 1. Yes, after a long weekend, that was Utamaduni Day. People call it Utamaduni, Huduma Day, but I hope you had a good one nonetheless. Welcome to the program. There's so much that we are going to be handling today, not limited to the start of the interviews of different people who will be joining the president government, that is the PSs, the DCI officers, who is going to take their seats during these interviews slated for this particular week. We'll be talking more as well on matters politics later on in the hour. Welcome to the program. My name is Victor Lowe. Yes, sir.
Good morning to you. I hope you enjoyed your holiday with yesterday being Utamaduni Day, celebrating the different cultural diversity that we have in our country. And today we are celebrating the International Day of the Girl Child, which marks the 10-year anniversary since its inception. And UN says much has been done to make sure that the voice of the girl child has been heard on the international stage. However, less has been done in terms of rights of the girl child to help them overcome the different barriers that are there. But however, we still celebrate the girl child today. Good morning. My name is Stephanie Ayata. Doreen.
And speaking of interviews, well, beginning tomorrow, those interviews of the Principal Secretary will commence all the way up until the 22nd of this month. And late on Friday, the Public Service Commission reviewed that list upward from 477 to 585. These are the shortlisted ones who will be appearing before the panel for these interviews. And they said this is just for the fact to ensure that there's inclusivity, particularly for women, the youth, as well as persons with disabilities. Remember that also in this government, this is also going to be an upward trend, as you're seeing that number move from 42 all the way to 50 principal secretaries. So we also are waiting to see how all these interviews will pan out, knowing fully well that it has attracted politicians, particularly those that lost in the previous elections. Also, the current outgoing principal secretaries will have also made it to the short list of 585, all of them battling out for the 50 position of principal secretaries. We are waiting to see how all this will be panning out by the end of 22nd of this month. Of course, that is what you're following up on for you. Clearly, a lot in store for you this morning. Later on, we shall also be having a conversation on GMO safety. 8 days since that ban was lifted. What next? Many thanks for making time. I'm Doreen Arange Okello. Regina.
Good morning. You're just in time for comprehensive news coverage and talking about news in 30 days. What has the new government, the regime led by President William Ruto, delivered? The hits and misses, as you know, pundits continue looking at what is being done by the new administration, including the choice, or rather the proposed names to head the various cabinet ministries, as well as government interventions, especially when it comes to matters of agriculture in light of
Tanzania ranks.
Good morning. If you're tuning in, this is In the Headlines on KBC Channel 1. Glad you could make time. Being Tuesday, the 11th of October 2022, a day after Kenyans celebrated or marked a holiday with a lot of confusion. Kenyans saying this is a holiday because, you know, by law, you cannot take away a holiday. Now, Huduma Day, Kenyans continued to mark or celebrate it in different forms, and we're going to be putting that into perspective. But now we talk about matters of bilateral trade ties. Kenya will benefit from cheap natural gas imported from Tanzania, with the likely effect of bringing down the cost of generation of power and eventually the cost of living. This is after President William Ruto and his Tanzanian counterpart Samia Suluhu agreed to revive an agreement that will allow Tanzania to export gas through Kenya through a pipeline from Dar es Salaam connected to Mombasa and finally to Nairobi. John Jacob Kuria has a report.
Tanzania ranks at number 71 in the world in the production of natural gas, producing 39,189.65 million cubic feet of natural gas per year, compared to its consumption of 109,500 million cubic feet. It's against this background that Kenya struck a long-term deal during the reign of retired President Uhuru Kenyatta for Tanzania to export its natural gas surplus to Kenya to aid the generation of electricity where power tariffs continue to hit the roof. While on his 2-day working tour of Tanzania, President William Ruto and his Tanzanian counterpart Samia Suluhu agreed to revive the deal that will see the construction of a pipeline from Mtwara, Dar es Salaam to Mombasa and later Nairobi.
Tumekubaliana na Mheshimiwa Rais na serikali zetu mbili kwamba wale wanaohusika, wale watu wa private sector, sasa tutaiharakisha. Tuko na suluhu ya mambo magumu, na mama amesema mimi naitwa Kipchirchir, mimi kumaanisha kuharakisha. Sasa tutakuwa na suluhu na kuharakisha, ndio haya mambo yote yaweze kufanyika.
Mradi ambao tulisha saini makubaliano pamoja na Rais Uhuru, lakini Rais Ruto ameubeba kwa ndio mradi wake wa kwanza atakaoanza na Tanzania, bomba la kusafirisha gesi Dar es Salaam kwenda Mombasa.
With a move expected to lower energy tariffs in the country, the deal will rope in the private sector and stakeholders in the gas industry.
We can use the resources that we have in our region to lower energy tariffs, both for industry and for commercial purposes and domestic use in Kenya, as we use the resources we have in our region to improve the quality of life for our people and to also improve the competitiveness of our industries and our investors, so that we can be competitive as a region and be competitive as a country.
President Ruto says the government is committed to the efficient conclusion of a project so that Kenyans can begin enjoying the fruits of the deal.
We are going to ensure that whatever the government of Kenya needs to do will be done in a timely, efficient, and effective manner so that in the shortest time possible we can access the gas resources that you have in your country to drive the industrialization in our country.
President Ruto concluded his walking tour of the neighboring country, with both heads of state promising to improve trade relations between the two countries and her people.
Vikwazo 54 viliondoka visivyo vya kikodi, non-tariff barriers, na bado kuna vikwazo 14 vimebaki. Na tumetaka mawaziri wetu wa sekta ya biashara na uwekezaji wakutane kwa haraka kufanyia kazi vikwazo 14 ili tuwe na uhuru mpana sasa wa kufanya biashara.
Because of the goodwill you build between our two countries. As I said earlier, trade between our two countries has grown phenomenally. In 1 year, exports from Kenya to Tanzania grew from 31 billion shillings to 45 billion shillings.
Indeed, that speech there in regard to where we are when it comes to matters of energy, as much as the president tried to make a joke saying Kipchirchir akona suluhu there, Kenyans are still grappling with a high cost of living that is characterized by high cost of energy. So indeed, this is a move in the right direction. Yesterday was World Mental Health Day, and the Ministry of Health indicated a report that they had already put out in the public is that 5.4 million Kenyans are suffering from one mental illness or another. You can get further details on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. Now, still keeping up on matters of investment is that Africa's economy is set to flourish if small and medium enterprises access credit and scale their businesses to improve income and employment opportunities in the continent. Experts speaking during the Invest in Africa conference in London say despite MSMEs being the mainstay of the continent's economy, they remain highly underfunded.
Micro, small and medium enterprises make up the highest percentage of businesses on the African continent and provide an estimated 80% of employment across the continent. The MSME sector, however, remains largely underbanked and struggles to access credit as it is considered high risk.
If the banking sector was providing as much credit, as much loans to the real economy as it should or other parts of the world are doing, then we'd have an extra 1.6 trillion of private credit to the real economy. Or put that differently, that's loans to individuals, be that mortgages or car loans. And that's loans, which is what we're focused on, loans to micro entrepreneurs and loans to SMEs. So we think the bulk of that credit gap is those segments which are very poorly covered.
Verdant Capital's Managing Director Edmund Higginbottom says inclusive financial institutions that focus on the MSME sector ought to leverage financial technology trends that the continent has witnessed over the past decade to close the credit gap.
What we've seen in the last 10 years, the last 15 years, is very significant changes in technology in the financial sector. Mobile wallets, mobile money, how data is aggregated, how data is handled and analyzed. And that's the ecosystem on which creates a very significant opportunity to create loans to small businesses, to micro entrepreneurs, to other types of small borrowers.
The International Monetary Fund projects Africa's working age population will have grown by 30% in the next 5 years. Experts say the African Continental Free Trade Area is the gateway to Africa's prosperity. The United Kingdom says trade barriers ought to be eliminated to foster intra-African trade that currently stands at a low 15%.
The envisioned trade area will connect 1.3 billion people and economies with a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion through a single set of trading rules. This could boost intra-African trade by over 50% and in itself lift an estimated 100 million people out of poverty. To help achieve this and to reduce costs for consumers and businesses in Africa and the UK, we need to remove trade barriers. That is why, since the UK left the EU, we have signed no fewer than 9 trade agreements covering 18 African nations.
As the bloodline of Africa's economy, MSMEs ought to be supported to scale their businesses so as to ensure the economy grows fast enough to support the ballooning population.
Well, we see micro-entrepreneurs and SMEs as the engine of growth in the African economy. We don't see the public sector as growing. We don't see the resources sector, oils and mining, while that can contribute towards GDP, we see that as having a limited impact on domestic employment and domestic livelihoods. So we see micro-entrepreneurs and we see SMEs as critical in driving the development agenda.
The Investing in Africa conference brings together investors, financial institutions, as well as business persons seeking investments.
Very good fought trade there, especially in light of intra-African trade there. Now, the Kenya-Somalia border is set for reopening. Mandera County Police Commander Johanna Tanui said stakeholders and security officials from both sides have held talks to facilitate the resumption of cross-border operations that stalled in 2012.
Mandera County has in recent days hosted meetings for security officials and stakeholders aimed at warming relations between Kenya and Somalia. Mandera County Police Commander Johanna Tanui said the talks have centered on enhancing security along Kenya's borders with Somalia and Ethiopia.
Meetings imekuwa ikifanyika huku Nairobi na pia hapa kwa border ili tulete wale wahusika wote, all the stakeholders ambaye watakuja kuman mpaka yetu ndio tuwe na one stop border point because hapa Mandera tuko na mpaka ya Kenya na Somalia na pia mpaka na Ethiopia na wananchi ya inchi zote tatu so na one thing in common, they share the same boundary. Sile rasilimali siko huku, wananchi wote wanategemea.
Tanui noted that the current drought had transcended boundaries, hence the need for synergies to address pastoralists' quest for pasture.
Hii ni kaunti ambaye tuko na janga la ukame. Mvua pande hii wanga ni iko kwa wapa kabisa. So rasilimali kama maji wanga ni shida kupata. Na wananchi wengi ni wafugaji ambaye wanahitaji maji ya mifugo na pia malisho. So unakuta kama iko mahali ya kulisha pande ya Somalia, watu ya Kenya wana jaribu kufugisha mifugo huku wapate hizo malisho na pia maji.
The locals in Mandera are upbeat about plans to reopen the border to ease access to basic commodities which are cheaper across the border.
Border imefungwa kwa muda mrefu na tuliomba mara mingi sana na officers ambao wahusika wamekuja Mandera mara mingi, sijui walikuwa wameassess kivyao, lakini tunataka officially ifunguliwe ili tupate kile tungepata rashini, mafuta na yale tungepata kutoka huko tupate na njia rahisi.
Kuna shida sana Mandera, chakula ni bei kali, kila kitu imekuwa bei ya juu sana. Tuko na maisha magumu sana. Asua sisi watu asola, tuko na maisha magumu sana hapa Mandera. Chakula ni shida, maji ni shida kupata, mtufungulie boda naomba.
Kufungulia ni mzuri, kila bande wote wanapata chakula, kila mtu muhimu unatoka huko. Chakula kama mchele tunapata kutoka Somalia, bia tunapata pasta, maziwa tunapata kutoka baada ya Somalia.
For instance, they are relying on Ethiopia's Softu area and Somalia's Bulahawa for cooking oil that trades at 600 shillings per litre and rice sold at 1,300 shillings per 25 kgs. They say the unhindered movement of people and goods will boost integration.
We'll be keeping tabs on that, especially in regard to matters security. Now, police in Kisii stopped the burial of a 37-year-old woman after a family court order was issued. Kisii Central OCPD Amos Ambassa ordered the family to return the body to the Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital mortuary after contention on the land she was to be buried at. Ambassa has called for calm as they wait for the court decision on the matter.
There was drama in Mwambondosi, Iteresi village in Kisii County after the burial of a middle-aged woman was stopped by police after it emerged that the deceased is not the rightful owner of a piece of land that she was about to be buried. According to Abagusi traditional culture, a banana stem was planted at the yet-to-be-completed grave. The deceased husband had applied to the court to be granted the portion of the land, claiming the current occupants had obtained it illegally, but she was allegedly murdered before judgment was passed. Efforts by the clan to pursue the case to its conclusion did not bear fruit after the High Court sitting in Kisii ruled that the piece of land was acquired legally.
Mwili rudi mochari.
Kisii Central OCPD Amos Ambassa ordered the family to return the body to the mortuary. Had a difficult time calming the crowd.
Muache kelele, watu waendelee na shughuli zao, waende wapange na mupange vile mutapatia Catherine mazishi ile imefa.
Quite an emotive issue there. We hope it's going to be resolved and justice served. Now, service to humanity is an important aspect of life, and it brings hope and life to the downtrodden. A religious nun in Kithioko Masinga Sib County in Machakos County knows all too well the need to serve humanity. In the last 2 decades, Sister Mary Musembe has been supporting needy persons suffering from memory loss. A majority of cases at Sister Musembe's humble abode in Kithioko were abandoned in hospital after suffering various traumatic incidents. The relatives too cannot be traced. Here's Gladys Mungai with that story.
10th October 2022. Attention to the needy at Kithioko, Machakos County is in earnest. Whereas in other regions it is a known and off activity, here it has become a routine. A routine initiated and set up by Sister Mary Musembe, a contemplative of the Sister of Our Lady of Mercy. In a story similar to that of St. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, Sister Mary Musembe felt inclined to offer home to the downtrodden in the society. Mercy Servants of the Poor Foundation Home is tucked deep inside Machakos County. This is the place these people now call home, and Sister Musembe says her call as a religious nun is to serve, so this initiative gives her a lot of satisfaction.
I was inspired by the suffering humanity, that redemptive love that you serve without expecting anything in return. Serving people whom have nobody to care. Even the relatives have abandoned them. The society, nobody wants to be associated with.
The journey, however, has not been rosy. She says they survive on support from well-wishers. With the home struggling to make ends meet, the nun is challenging the government and Kenyans at large to lend a helping hand.
I call upon the government, if it is possible, to set aside a kid for the vulnerables, for the destitute in our society. They are all Kenyans. They are not less Kenyans. They are part and parcel of our life. They are our people, and we should love them. If we truly claim that we are Christians.
The home has a workforce of 7, including 2 volunteers. Water is still a challenge. Electricity, though nearby at the other center, it is yet to reach home. The facility is home to 20 persons suffering from memory loss and whose relatives cannot be traced. It is also home to people who have been abandoned by their relatives, among them infants.
The people we get here, they are people who have been abandoned by their relatives in the hospitals. The children are dumped, they are just left, which means that our present society has lost that spirit of love. The love towards the needy is dying.
Despite the obvious challenges, Sister Musembi soldiers on and is looking at expanding her home. She also hopes that Kenyans of goodwill can come to her aid and offer any support. You can reach Sister Musembi on 0723 291 329.
In support of that particular facility, you can get further details on our website, how you can, send your contribution to support them and Sister Musembi's initiative. Now to the counties where organic farmers in Kiambu County have faulted the national government's plan to introduce genetically modified crops. They claim GMOs have negative effects on end users and urge the Ministry of Agriculture to educate farmers on organic farming instead. Details of this from the County News Roundup.
The organic farmers oppose the unbanning of GMOs, urging the government to enhance access to water as a means of enhancing food security.
Tutaki GMO kwa sababu GMO itakuwa mahindi ya kupanda ama mbegu ya kupanda mara moja tu. Hizi mbegu zetu ndizo tunapanda kila mara na hazibadiliki, mazao haiendi chini, haizayani na mbegu zingine zile za hybrid. Hii inakaa ikiwa original.
Mimi ningesihi serikali iwe ikuje itusomese hii organic farming. Wakuja masinani kwa sababu hii mazao ya hii organic ni mzuri sana na misoko yake ni mzuri sana na iko bei kali.
In Mombasa County, residents of Tudor Ward took to the streets to collect garbage as a way of commemorating Utamaduni Day. The residents, led by Mvita Member of Parliament Mohamed Machele, also cleared drainage systems.
Hii mambo safi ama mambo ya environment ni jukumu la kila mkazi wa Mombasa. Lazima tushirikiane na county kusaidia. Wao ni collectors, sisi ndo tuna produce uchafu. So uchafu ukitoka ndani ya nyumba yako, tuhakikishe pia tumefollow up umeenda wapi.
Tumeweza kusema siku ya leo ya kusherehekea utamaduni tuweze kufanya usafi, na haijakomea hapa. Itakuwa after miezi miwili tunatoka nje. Siku ya Jamhuri tunataka kufanya tena usafi.
Elsewhere, Kaiti Member of Parliament Joshua Kimilu has urged the government to complete stalled projects that were initiated by the Jubilee government in Makueni County in order to enable the residents to reap the benefits.
Tuko na barabara siku hapa ambao zilianzishwa na serikali ya Jubilee kitambo 2013-2014 na mpaka wa leo sijaisha. Tunaomba rais angalie kwanza hizo project tuone zinamalizika, kwa sababu vile aliahidi watu wake atawafanyia. Nataka kuona kazi inaendelea kwa Wakenya wote.
Meanwhile, Archbishop Hubertus Maria, the Apostolic Nuncio to Kenya, has commended Kenyans for conducting themselves peacefully during the electioneering period. He stated the church's commitment to promoting peace and prosperity in the country. And the Church of Prophets has indicated their support for the ruling coalition, saying they will pray for its fulfillment of campaign pledges.
Tunajifunia na hiyo utamaduni ya Wakorino. Kwa maana Wakorino wakikutana, Kenya wanaongea kuhusu kanisa. Kama mkutano wa leo, tulikuwa tunaongea kuhusu kanisa, vile tunaweza tukaunganisha Wakorino wetu. Sana hii county ya Kiambu. Na tugitaka kuungana na serikali, na tugitaka kuishika mkono. Mahali inatakikana sana ni maombi. Sisi kazi yetu kama wakuhani ni maombi.
On that note, we take a quick breather. We'll be right back with more news. To keep it right here.
You are the love of my life. Why can't you just try to forgive me?
After all you did to me, you think I would let that go and be your wife?
Things that are supposed to sound sweet, when said by you, come out so heartbreaking.
Just as I had thought. Dragon bones buried beneath Sky Wall give the place magical properties. It's been deserted since Mars' passing. But now, there's a mysterious energy surging from beneath it.
And out of nowhere, Rodor showed up, saying he'd seen Echo. Francis was so excited, he set off in search of him.
You're right about what you said. I'm glad that we didn't use the gate or alert everybody. We don't need the trouble.
The world's biggest sporting event is here with us. The FIFA World Cup 2022 in Qatar. KBC Television will air live 28 selected matches, while radio will beam live all the 64 matches. We would like to bring to the attention of the public that KBC is the only station that has exclusive 2022 FIFA World Cup free-to-air FTA broadcast rights for both TV and radio in the Kenya territory, and no other media outlet. Therefore, catch all the FIFA World Cup action live and exclusive on KBC TV and radio. KBC is indeed your true sports partner.
With my family seated, can I listen to that music? With my father, with my mother seated together, can we listen to that music together?
Just remove your father from the equation. Kila mtu akae kando. We listen to Zuchu. Everybody, when you go to TikTok, a 13-year-old is saying, what is it called?
Sukari.
Yeah, not even Sukari. This song about Nyumba Ndogo.
Is it music supposed to be food for the heart?
Okay, I'm not too sure about that. Is co-parenting working? Is it a fad? Is it something that we're just glorifying? I am not your enemy. You're not my enemy. We just need to live separately so that and then raise this child together. You see, it doesn't have to be toxic for you to. So what's that? It's conscious uncoupling.
So do you think you would work with Otile Brown again if things were different right now?
In the headlines, and I am Regina Manyara. Now we speak multi-sports, where veteran rally driver Piero Canobayo says he has found his rhythm in his Hyundai i20 NG Rally 2 machine despite retiring from the 6th round of the Kenya National Rally Championship in Nanyuki last month due to a mechanical gremlin. Now the former Mitsubishi Evolution 10 driver is among those enlisted for the Mombasa Motor Club rally slated for Saturday in Kilifi County.
Piero Canobio will be hoping to rediscover the reliability of his new i20 and Rally 2 machine against Nairobi drivers, among them series leader Karan Patel, second place Jasmeet Chana, and first place Raji Singh Barij, who will be returning to the national series in a Minty Motorsports Skoda Fabia Rally 2. The i20 and Rally 2 car is the successor to i20 R5, currently running the National and Continental Championships across the globe, as well as World Rally Third Tier Championship WRC3. Piero will become the first ever driver to enter the Mombasa Motor Club Rally leg of the National Series in a Hyundai Rally 2 machine. Piero is an old hand in the sport, having started his racing in Italy in the 1980s and teaming up with
As well, in a month or so, we'll all be headed down to Kilifi for that particular feat. Now to the courts, where KCA University beat Multimedia University 50-27 in one of the Women's Basketball League matches played yesterday at the University of Nairobi. In Handball League, Daystar University suffered a 42-27 defeat to Rising Star in a match played at the Nyayo National Stadium.
KCA dominated the match, winning the first quarter and second quarters 12-3 and 14-7 respectively. They went on to take on the third and fourth quarters respectively after scoring 13-10 and 11-7 respectively. In other matches, Zetech Sparks beat KU Oryx 84-41, while NIPS was beaten 61-56 by Kabul's Elicist. UON Dynamities beat Sharon Gaseri 42-26.
I'd like to thank God for the win that we've had today. It was a tough win. I remember we lost to JKUAT. We went overtime past Kusai in Dedan Kimathi. So we were longing for this game. We had that urge to win. And I think we had something to prove. So at least we won, though it was a tough win.
We started on a very low note. It was very, very low. Because when we began, we were down so bad. And then third quarter, we catched up with them. Because at that time, we were down like 8 points. We were having a rushed offense. Everything was not working. The defense was okay. So third quarter, we figured it out. We cooled down our offense.
In the Handball League, Daystar University was beaten 42-27 by Rising Star in a thrilling match played at the Nyayo National Stadium. Currently, NCPB and Ulinzi are leading the men's league standings with 22 points, while Nairobi Water tops the women's league with 18 points, 4 points ahead of Ulinzi Sharks and NCPB.
To cricket, where cricket chairman Manoj Patel said the success of the national under-19 cricket team at the ICC World Cup qualifiers is a new dawn for the game in the country. Patel was speaking in Mombasa during the finals of the DTB Premier Cricket League promised to work closely with former international cricketers to return Kenya to a one-day international match.
Patel said the under-19 men's team has qualified for the next year's second and final round, where the winners between Namibia, Tanzania and Uganda, among others, will represent Africa in the 2024 ICC Under-19 World Cup. Patel was speaking in Mombasa during a Premier Cricket League that was won by Deccan Super Kings.
As we all are aware, currently our Under-19 performed very well, and we jumped from Division 2 to 1. So let's hope for the best for our Under-19s also. Currently, as I said, we are in Division 1 now and hope we do the well. From Division 2 to we are in 1 now, and for the World Cup qualifiers now, we need to come in top 2. So once we are there, we'll be there. And we were there, I think 16-17, we were there in a World Cup, coached by Jimmy Command at that time. So after that, it's not that we didn't perform, but the politics, you say, the cricket was not there all these years. But now because cricket is back, thanks to Serikali.
We made a team. So yeah, we started good. When the first 2 games we won. After that, there was a downfall and we lost 2 games. And after that, bit of upset and all things. We again sat together. And we work out a weakness, so where need to be changed, our batting and bowling, then we changed. And after that, continuously we are winning the 4th game, so we are in top 4th of the table. Then up to the finals. Now we beat the top 2 teams, and today you can see the result. We won the game.
During the final match, Deccan Super Kings led the captain Raj Shetty won the match after thrashing Vehicle Movers Candelas by 7 wickets. Kings won the toss and elected the ball first, where Candelas captain Mohammad Sharez and Akshay Bederia helped the team to restrict their side to 139 over 9 and 20 overs. In the second innings, Shetty gave the second start to his team as star batsman Safraz Ahmed gave tremendous batting to score 51 runs off 34 balls with 3 sixes and 4 fours to make it easy for the team to chase the target as score hit 137 over 3 in 14.1 overs. Ahmed was declared the man of the match with excellent scores of 51 runs. King Orimwangi for Channel 1 Sports.
Kenya will host the Red Bull Street Style World Finals next year. The confirmation was made after the 2022 Red Bull Street Style World Finals in Pula, Croatia by World Freestyle Football Association President Steve Elias. Next year's World Finals in Kenya will mark the competition's first return to Africa since 2010. The Red Bull Street Style Football is freestyle football genre, and for the first time, 16 female athletes will face off in the World Finals, marking a key moment of growth for the sport. The 2023 World Freestyle Football Championship will attract more than 35 countries. Kenya, being the host country, will be advertised worldwide with an expected viewership of over 3 million. Interesting, right? Now, Cameroon national soccer team will be appearing for the 8th time in the FIFA World Cup, and this is a record for the most appearances at the world event among the African teams. This year's World Cup finals will be held in Qatar from the 20th of next month and will be televised live on KBC.
A little bit back into the danger area, flicks on, and they scored! Oh, it's incredible! It's Cole Toko Akambi.
The team is coached by former defender and captain Rigobert Song, the first African team to reach the quarterfinals of the FIFA World Cup in 1990, losing to England in extra time.
Starting as in comes Lineker and scores! England lead by 3-2. 2 goals for Gary Lineker from the penalty spot. We're now playing stoppage time.
In 2014, they lost their 3 group matches against Mexico, Croatia and Brazil.
It's a dribble by Fernandinho. David Luiz will play back in! And Oscar heads it home! In fact, it's Fred! Fred heads it home!
In Qatar, they are pulled in Group G alongside 5 times champions Brazil, Serbia and Switzerland. Some of the stars whose current squad include Inter Milan's goalkeeper Andre Onana, Vincent Abubakar and Carl Teko Ekambi of Leo. The global soccer competition will be broadcast live on KBC Channel 1 as from 20.
And KBC Channel 1, we want to remind you that we have the exclusive rights to air the football feat, the World Cup in Qatar 2022. So save a date. November 20th it is. We take a quick breather. We'll be back with what has been making headlines from the dailies.
Now let's take a look what you have on the front page of our local dailies. Let me start with the Star newspaper that I have with me. On the front page, Farouk Kibet, the total man in Ruto presidency. On the front page, Farouk Kibet, the total man in Ruto presidency. The former Warren councillor undoubtedly wields immense power in the new administration. There is a pull out here. It's a complete profile on who Farouk Kibet is, and of course the previous regimes, starting from Jomo Kenyatta to President Uhuru Kenyatta's regime. In President Kenyatta's, Jomo Kenyatta's, we had Mbiu Koinange. In Daniel Arap Moi, we had Nicholas Bewot, who was famously known as the Total Man, and Mark Toh. In Mwai Kibaki's regime was Professor Nick Wanjohi, and in President Kenyatta's regime, there was Nje Muturi and Jomo Geshaga. But now, in Ruto's government, we have Farouk Kibet. Let me quote what Ndindi Nyoro said. Ndindi Nyoro said that Farouk's office is that of the President of Kenya because you can't access the President if Farouk says no. Even the Deputy President, who is my friend, to reach him, Farouk must say yes. And there is an intention to this. on who should be handling President's private diary. And Farouk Kibet in this government is the man in question. All right. On the second page, I've to touch soil to help my son with the CBC homework, says parent with deaf kid. Currently, there are very few schools that cater for the needs of deaf children. This is just but some of the predicaments that parents go through. With the CBC curriculum as it is. Sleepless nights for families displaced by SGR in Naivasha. They fear that they could miss out on compensation despite state taking over land. They now fear they should miss out on compensation, and of course hundreds of them families displaced by the extension of the meter gauge railway line from the dry port of to Longonot town have also not been compensated. One of those affected says that one of the displaced families says that the two railway lines had not been paid years after the two projects were completed. That is just but a plight of such families. Very quickly, okay, you can take a look at that story of Farouk Kibet is on page 4 and page 5. Here, a complete page layout. IBC denied police officers lunch during August poll, says report. IPOA says that commission failed to request an adequate number of cops overworking them. This emerged in its polls monitoring report dubbed IPOA Monitoring on Police Conduct during the 2022 general election, launched last Friday. IBC had a budget of 44 billion shillings for the general election, which was financed by public funds, appropriation in aid and development partners. Moving on, Governor Chani reopens Kumbani Fresh Produce Market. That is now the reopening follows a Monday morning fracas between private security officers, angry residents and traders. Several people were injured and left with deep cuts. Police officers from the Kombani police post had to intervene to restore order. Very quickly on politics, Azimio Kenya Kwanza to meet amid jostling for House committees. Parliament is expected to constitute House Business Committee as its first business. While Azimio will be meeting today, that is on Tuesday today, Kenya Kwanza has not agreed on the day, with insiders say that they are still waiting for President William Ruto, who is still in Tanzania, to confirm the date for the meeting. The Azimio meeting, coming hours before the House sitting, will approve members of the crucial House Business Committee and the Committee on Appointments. And these two committees are quite crucial for the running of Parliament. And finally, anxious moment as interviews for PS positions begin tomorrow. Shortlisted individuals are required to carry clearances from EACC, KRA, and HELB. While those, the National Police Service said that in a statement that out of 252 applicants, only 10 managed to pass the hurdle. So that will be starting tomorrow. All right, that's all I had on the Star newspaper. Steph?
On People's Daily, so much is making news here. But the main read says that open frontiers for trade, Ruto tells EAC leaders. And he has been quoted there saying this is an emphatic signal that the African unity of our time has come of age, a continent united by opportunity and a Pan-Africanism driven by trade. So some of the issues raised at talks in the different countries have been summarized here on the front page. On matters goods, the EAC countries have been urged to remove trade barriers by adopting borderless community. On the gas pipe to start from Dar es Salaam, Mombasa, and later to Nairobi. This will lower the retail cost of energy. On matters peace, the African Union-led efforts will create stability for economic transformation and sustainable development. On food prices, Kenya will import wheat from Ethiopia, whose yields have increased sustainably. And the Lamu port has been proposed as home port for the southern part of Ethiopia. On telecoms, Safaricom to serve Ethiopia's 115 million people, transform the region's ICT landscape.
Other
on
communities
matters
had
manufacturing. On matters manufacturing, sorry about that, EAC asked to review spending on steel imports as raw materials are available locally on regional trade. 8 African countries to do business together, guided by the African Continent Free Trade Area. So these are some of the things that have been discussed in the trips that the president have been to. On page 2, what will it take to end banditry in North Rift? So dangerous has the region become that it's only by God's grace that particularly for the dreaded GSU posted to the region return home to their families alive. This is a story by Zadok Angira of People Daily saying that the records indicate that most of the officers died through banditry attack, especially within the North Rift. Others have been killed by robbers, colleagues, terrorists, and even members of the public. So to answer this question, what will it take to end the banditry in North Rift? Some experts say, one of them is the former IG David Kimayo, says priority is to conduct proper disarmament in the area, come up with an alternative means of livelihood, and make education mandatory. The former GSU officer and security expert George Musamali says officers should be often well equipped and properly briefed when pursuing bandits. And there's so many other experts quoted on that particular article. You can take a look at it sometime. To another news. The senior officers set for DCI director interviews today, which Victor has just gone through. So today is the day when they are going to be interviewed, the 10 of the shortlisted DCI officers. And lastly, on matters mental health, the highest teen suicide puzzles mental health pundits. And Africa reports the highest number worldwide in terms of the number of mental health cases that have been witnessed. Kenya media reported close to 5 suicidal deaths of school-going children in the last 1 month, including a Form 3 girl who committed suicide after she was accused by her teacher of stealing 2,500 shillings. This is one of the cases of the teenagers who have committed suicide during this period. A new report released over the weekend by the WHO showed that Africa has had the largest rate in the world of people dying by suicide. Around 11 people per 100,000 population die by suicide every year in Africa. So this is quite alarming, and they've also given there an article on just how health dietary patterns can help in this situation to lessen mental health problems in the population in the country. So you can also have a look at that. That's just some of the stories making news on People Daily. Doreen.
Pay cuts loom in Ruto budget plan. That is what you're waking up to this Tuesday morning on the Daily Nation. In fact, I should say brace yourself maybe for more tougher times. I should say this is even as anxiety continues to kick in as Treasury now looks into ways to cut off the 300 billion budget as it was mentioned by the president. This is what he had talked about some few weeks back. He even had intimated of perhaps not looking into borrowing from the international lenders. As we stand, our debt is still at 8.6 trillion, and actually this is set to begin today, being the Tuesday of October this year. And even as we speak, what Daily Nation has established is that there's a work plan that shows non-salary benefits such as allowances, including entertainment, travel, and spending on utilities will also be reviewed for cuts starting this morning. Also, multi-billion shilling a year office rent and guard and cleaning services contracts top the list of items marked for chopping. This is even as National Treasury begins on that implementation plan of the 2022-2023 year budget to see how best they can reduce on the budget. Even as we speak, the budget restructuring meeting are scheduled to begin, as I've said, today, and this is expected to run up until 21st of this month, with various departments under the big spender likely to be the first ones to appear before the Treasury Committee. And in that regard, Education Ministry is set to appear first before the Treasury team to see what exactly they can cut off. This is even as this particular department ministry was allocated 513.8 billion for this financial year. That is the 2022-2023 financial year. It's all about cutting on spending, as we are drawing from this particular article and even going by what the president talked about. So even as this is happening, there's still high cost of living as we look into 100 days in office of President Ruto. As we head over to that 100 days in office, still a lot is being said when it comes to issues of high cost of living, talking about basic commodities which have really gone on a high in the past couple of weeks, I should say. And this has also been attributed to the rise of inflation, which has largely been driven by increase in price of commodities. And this is under food and non-alcoholic beverages at 15.5%, transport at 10.2%, housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels at 7.3%. This article just continues to highlight how the cost of living has really gone high, and even as we continue to anticipate more of that perhaps in the coming days. Away from that, Wanjigi now says keep poll losers out of cabinet. This is one of those presidential aspirants in the 2022 elections. Of course, he didn't make it up to the final stage, but then he says to the president that he needs to keep off poll losers out of cabinet. We have largely talked about the principal secretary's position, which the list was reviewed from 477 to 585. And yes, as the Public Service Commission said, that this was all in a bid to ensure that there is proper inclusivity. But then also in that list are election losers, going by what we have here, and allies of President Ruto, including the immediate former Langata MP Nixon Korir and his Kiminini counterpart Chris Wamalwa, who lost in the Trans Nzoia governor contest. And so what he's just urging the president is that to ensure that in this positions of cabinet principal secretaries, and also there's a talk to bring back the CAS position, that he needs to keep off politicians from some of these offices. Also, this is taking cognizance of the fact that out of the 22 CS position nominee, we're seeing politicians taking a bigger chunk. And lastly, on matters health, India is a destination of choice for Kenyan patients. This is what the ministry says. This is the latest report by the Ministry of Health, which shows how Kenyans have really chosen Asia, particularly India, as a place of destination when it comes to their health matters. In fact, well, highlighting some of those counties with high numbers of those that really take to India for some of their health matters, key among them being Nairobi, Kiambu, Mombasa, and Uasin Gishu. Also in the report, it has indicated some of those diseases that most Kenyans go to India for treatment, of course, key among them being cancer, cardiovascular diseases, as well as renal diseases. That is what the Daily Nation is holding for you this Tuesday. Regina.
Now, we'll be back with what we have on the dailies, but after this quick breather.
the tumor malignant?
Well, sir, unfortunately, yes. And is that all you have to say about this?
Yes. Yes. No, I don't know what else you want me to say,
All right,
madam.
then. I want you to solve this problem right this instant.
All right, whatever you say. Just don't say that I didn't try, huh? I did.
There are so many painful things that I would rather not remember.
I can imagine that Gonzalo's one of them.
Yes, you're right.
You weren't able to kill your father. Too bad you lost your golden opportunity. You could have saved the life of your dear father. But you didn't want to because you chose not to use your head. You could have just given him blood and let it go. Instead, you let René do it. So now he's a hero, a savior. He's now your daddy's favorite. So right now, René's going to do whatever he pleases.
Life cannot always be too serious.
Yeah, man, what's up, yeah?
Hello? We've got to take some time off and laugh, and laugh. And we tickle you down with lots of laughter.
That's why I'm saying I'm who is who.
Huh? With satire like no other.
Tell him to bring it on. Dakachapa.
At KBC Channel 1, we put people at the heart of events with our captivating weekly news features. Every day, we are breaking new grounds with informative, entertaining, and inspiring human interest stories. On Mondays, 9 p.m., we have The Cabinets. Tuesday, 9 p.m., we get inside the barracks for military tales. We delve in the world of cinemas and theater each Wednesday night. For the young and industrious, make a date with us every Thursday at 9 p.m. Fridays are dedicated for my culture. On Saturdays, we go back in time for history in perspective. And on Sundays, we get to know the process of how things are done and made. KBC Channel 1 News features a whole lot of wonderful viewing experience.
Thank you for still keeping us company watching In the Headlines on KBC Channel 1. I have a copy of the Standard being the 11th of October 2022, a day that, pundits, political pundits who have been keeping tabs on the first 100 days of President William Ruto's regime. What has he delivered? What are the hits and misses? 30 days to go. And that is what we have on the front page. Hustlers miss out on Ruto's 30-day boon. Now, whereas friends and loyal politicians have been rewarded by appointments from the legislature to the executive, 30 days down the line, Wananchi. Wanjiko is still experiencing tough times. Drought is ravaging the country. Fuel prices are at an all-time high, and the cost of living just got worse. They put it further in numbers. 179, that's the cost of super petrol, at least in Nairobi. And this is after Ruto's administration slammed the brakes on fuel subsidies that had gobbled a cool 144 billion shillings since the start. We also have a 230 shillings. That is how much you pay as a retail price for a 2 kg pack of unga, maize meal there. 4 million, those are the drought effects with several counties there staring at drought. Millions of Kenyans are still waiting for the government to provide food aid and to ease pain. 50 billion. MSMEs are still awaiting the enactment of the Hustlers Fund to get affordable loans, and this was a grand promise and a key pillar to Ruto's manifesto. I want to quote one of the articles here, paragraph or so, that opines that the real test of this new administration's 100 days is not the short-term gains it delivers, but on how it has organized itself for the long-term answers to Kenyans' demands and desires. There are 75 days left to deliver, and this takes us all the way to December 2022, Thursday before Christmas. What will the KK Alliance have delivered? This is in regard to its 100-day plan, so to speak. Now we have the issue of the cabinet nominees who were gazetted on October 5th, and the committee on appointments is to vet them beginning today, that is October 11th, and Kenyans have until 14th to offer comment and input on these nominees. Now the committee's vetting report would be ready towards the end of October, that's around October 27th. And the plan is to have the approval by the full House in the first week of November. And November 3rd will be day 51 since the inauguration, and assuming it all goes smoothly, let's assume the real work for the CSS will start around the following Monday. So we are looking at around the end of November or early December for this proposed CSS to actually begin work. So are we being realistic in expecting so much from the new administration, looking at 100 days and the promises that were made therein? Well, time will tell. That's just but a sneak peek of what has been given precedence on this particular article. Remember, further details are available on our website in regard to what has been making headlines regionally as well as on Matter Sports. Just a quick reminder, it is 40 days to go to the Qatar World Cup 2022, and KBC Channel 1 is going to be televising that. I hand you over to my colleague Victor Olo, who has on his panel and his guest list this morning none other than constitutional lawyer Gibson Gesore, to just take us through matters of what is happening as far as matters politics are concerned. To you, Victor.
Absolutely. But before I let you go, Regina, what's happening at the new enhanced NSE marketplace?
Well, we're expecting that even the president is going to be gracing this particular event, and our reporter Alan Aoko has been on ground, and the NSE looking at what the NSE or the Nairobi boss stands for. This is matters of investments. There's been a lot of talk, especially between August, where we had Geoffrey Odundo there say that it was a time to invest because there was, a movement from the Nairobi boss by investors, national investors ahead of the elections, but somewhat, if you look at the trends, it has quite been regaining its its former glory, so to speak, owing to the smooth elections that we witnessed, as well as the confidence after the Supreme Court ruling. So what is happening today? We're expecting that President Ruto is going to be gracing this event, and as I've mentioned, our reporter is already on ground. And just to give you a sneak peek of what is happening down there in regard to that particular matter, and as put by our reporter there, Alan Aoko, says that the NSE marketplace is set to provide an accelerated list route for leading companies through offering client-focused advisory and guidance to potential users, significantly reducing the time to market. I know a majority of Kenyans shy away from investing in the NSE, tending to think that it requires a lot of time and also knowledge. But now with this particular listing and targeted kind of listing and advisory, it will make it easy for you to trade in the NSE, Victor.
Thank you so much, Regina, for that. And things are looking pretty well for the business community in the country and, of course, Kenya at large. And we hope for the best at the NSE when the bell will ring. All right. Let's now shift gears to matters politics, and joining me in studio is Wakili Gibson. Wakili, they say Bokire.
Bokire.
All right, good morning. How was your long weekend?
Thank you, Victor, for inviting me, and I would want to say I'm happy to be back here after a while. My long weekend, Victor, was good. though people are not sure whether it's supposed to be a traditional one or an Uduma one, but nonetheless it was a long weekend.
Exactly.
Which we thank God for.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot happened, and we should expect more to happen perhaps this week. Let me start by asking you, because what's going to start to happen today is the vetting of the DCI boss, which is one of the crucial dockets in the country. And we've had several names being floated there. Who is going to replace Kinoti, who is now eyeing for a different position as per the National Police Service Commission. I don't know what is your take on the vetting, on what's going to start today, and what you think should be the criteria and requirements on who should inherit Kinoti?
On matters Kinoti, Victor, it's very interesting that Kinoti just came in board, and I think his term has not come to an end. But what is interesting to observe is the fact that politics dictates who has to inherit or who has to be in what position in this country, which is rather interesting.
Yeah.
But then, that aside, then there is the issue of how you have dealt before, the issue of personal differences, or how it's supposed that you have dealt, or how you ought not to have been behaving. There was a feeling that prior to the coming in of this particular leadership, the DCI had been heavily involved in trying to sabotage their campaigns, in trying to harass and in trying to bring them to book a couple of people. And people had been saying that this regime was coming under the precepts of giving freedom, and somebody was making a light joke that the freedom was actually indeed theirs.
Yes.
So, but then, especially the deputy president has been very categorical that indeed for him it's not even about the deputy president. It's actually the aspect that he can walk down the street without the fear of being arrested, without he can drive without seeing a lorry and getting scared whether it will crash. Or with that particular aspect, then you get to see that such a particular person who was in charge of a sensitive docket, then it's not morally, it's not right to actually proceed to work with the same people, which everybody has a perception that you are the person who was behind their troubles. So it's only clear that you need to exit and have somebody else who can be able to work, because security is a very sensitive docket for a regime. So it's only clear that, or it's only in order that he steps aside or moves to other things, less sensitive things, or lighter duties, as they call it sometimes, to take up some other roles, which the vetting, of course, there has been some controversy whether how that is supposed to exactly happen, whether it's there was an issue of constitution, but then we have an act which is not in tandem with what it's not very clear in the process. Normally it's supposed to be a procedural thing, but you get to realize that when they were amending the act, they left the other previous act which was subsisting. They didn't actually amend everything. So, but then we understand in Kenya, the rule of politics takes precedence over.
Exactly, and that is quite dangerous, because now when some kind of positions are now mixed with politics, we can imagine what would happen. But then, legally speaking, there is this aspect of the DCI, which has again been spoken over by the deputy president, that the DCI should go back to Kiambu Road. Do not engage, move away from public offices and go back to Kiambu Road. From a legal aspect, DCI must work in a certain way to collect to do the investigations, to come up with a strong case. How will it be? Because at some point, even you as lawyers, you depend on the DCI report to firm up your cases. So what do you think, what would be the sort of a DCI do you think we'll have after this, with such kind of pronouncements?
I think the statement by the deputy president that the DCI indeed should be able to move to Kiambu Road and leave public offices was meant in the aspect that of his former experiences, the over-engagement or the use of DCI to actually run politics. I think that is what he meant. But you see, if you take it clearly, if you take it literally, then you are likely to have issues whereby if the DCI actually pulls off of public offices where money is actually being spent and or money is actually being pilferaged, then we are going to have a serious challenge. So there is that balance, or there's that particular mix. You remember we had the Kamata Fridays,
exactly,
which really were not auguring well with the aspect of justice, because why arrest me on Friday if you are aware that I've committed a crime from previously? Why not any other day, but it's a Friday? So there's that aspect of trampling on the rights of people. I think that is what they need to check on. And then the aspect, if you have your evidence, then why want to victimize me? Why don't we just follow the Constitution clearly, which is giving me my rights? As much as I'm an accused person, I need to have my rights going forward. So there was that particular aspect, which of course, and that was also sometimes being precipitated by the aspect that the expectations of Kenyans are also very big. So I think the DCI, or the criminal justice system, was trying to pull up their socks and say, you know, we have even caught the big fish and they even slept inside.
Exactly.
Because there's that aspect, these people are financially capable. So once they arrive in court, they will just walk out the same way they came in. And the Kenyans felt that, you know, they were trying to play to the gallery in short. That's what I'm saying, which is not going in tandem with what the justice should.
You know what really happens? In previous regimes, each and every regime must have their own system, how things work. You know, the police force coupled by the DCI. That is quite normal. But then now, Kinoti had his standards of operations, and now we have the next regime, the current one. Perhaps based on what, not preferably, not necessarily to compare what Kinoti did, but what do you think the current DCI, who is going to succeed him, should do, or even perhaps make better?
Much as Kinoti has had his downsides, personally, from my own perspective, we needed that, because previously we had a DCI which was not visible, which was not known what it was doing, was operating behind the curtains. In essence, that's how they're supposed to happen, but we had a more political, more outgoing Kinoti, who in essence came at the right time, because we needed to buy that public support to also get the Kenyans, because at the end of the day, your work must be reflective of what the expectations of Kenyans should be. Much as that was also bordering some aspects of justice being pushed to the shove, but then the people who are actually being dealt with were people who are running Kenya, and you know, they can be able to find their way out in whatever situation you put them in. So then we had an aspect where even public officials were actually apprehensive of making a mistake, which was very important, as opposed to previously when people could just wake up and do whatever it is they want, and then they just know that they are not going to account to anyone. So we needed that. So as to the person who is coming in, whoever who is going to be given that particular seat, it will be very important for him to actually chart a path which should be able to, in quote-unquote, say, you should not be able to go below the standards that Kinoti set, and then be able to also balance the aspect of justice so that it doesn't end up being accused of what Kinoti is being accused of right now. So he has to be very civil. And I think I saw a statement, is it on social media from DCI, where they were actually saying that we will now be civilly arresting people, we will be checking on their rights. It means they are aware of what they're being accused of. And that is very important, because being self-aware is the most important thing you can ever be when you are in a public office. Remember that you need to behave in the manner of Caesar's wife.
Interesting statement there.
Yes.
As a legal practitioner, your work should be, it should be like like a chain. You get information from the DCI, from the police, and all that. How possible is it, or how easy is it to access information from the DCI? And perhaps if not, what do you think are some of the bottlenecks that hinder such flow of information as Kenyans seek for justice?
I think from the legal practitioner's perspective, DCI has been very helpful in terms of preparation of cases for advocates. I don't think as the Law Society of Kenya, there has ever been an accusation on the DCI that they are inept in terms of divulging information.
Yeah.
That has been, and I think the DCI also does understand that the lawyers are also critical players in this particular field. So I will now try to commend them that they need to keep that up. But that is what is expected, because the DCI is a midwife of justice. If you tend to make any simple mistake, we will lose the baby. So, and the baby being justice, hypothetically in this particular case. So, at the point when they realize, especially when when I go to police stations and I introduce myself that I'm a lawyer, then you start seeing them behave differently immediately from there. They start processing somebody differently as opposed to the speed at which they were taking him, the gusto with which they were moving with this case, because they understand now we've got to be very careful in terms of dealing with this person, because his person is marksman for his rights is here. So that also is a very important cog, that they are well aware that if we don't play right by the law, then there's aspect of this person whom we wanted to prosecute, or we have very cogent evidence against him, might actually be let free because of the constitutional provisions. So now we're supposed to process him. So that is one. Secondly, there's that aspect that what comes of the person who is not represented. That is also becomes, because the law must be able to act across the plane. So and most of Kenyans actually cannot be able to access legal services. So we actually need to ensure that the standards apply to both represented people and unrepresented people. They should be treated in a fair manner. So if we can be able to attain that, then we can actually be able to say Kenya is a country which respects justice.
There is that aspect of confidence. When you talk about, when you walk into an office and you introduce yourself, I'm a lawyer, and then things start moving hastily. But then that aspect of confidence, do you really think Kenyans are getting the confidence in 2 seconds, kindly?
Yeah, Kenyans are getting the confidence. Kenyans will always, once you find them in police station, they're getting the confidence. They know their rights. They will just tell you, most cases they don't, but the courage the Kenyans have is way beyond any other people I've seen in this country.
Let's take a break, okay?
Thank you.
Let me have my confidence with my boss and take a break. We'll be right back with Wakili Gibson Gisore shortly.
Everybody makes mistakes. You are the love of my life. Why can't you just try to forgive me?
After all you did to me, you think I would let that go and be your wife?
Things that are supposed to sound sweet, when said by you, come out so heartbreaking.
Just as I had thought. Dragon bones buried beneath Sky Wall give the place magical properties. It's been deserted since Mars' passing. But now, there's a mysterious energy surging from beneath it.
And out of nowhere, Rodor showed up, saying he'd seen Echo. Francis was so excited, he set off in search of him.
You're right about what you said. I'm glad that we didn't use the gate or alert everybody. We don't need the trouble.
The legends and familiar charms will grace KBC once again. Don't
na mada za kusisimua. KBC Channel 1, shirika la utangazaji Kenya.
right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is now People in Politics. And just to mention that I'm joined in the studio by Martin Mosisho, who is the Deputy Governor of Kajiado County. Joining me in studio, we'll be talking matters politics, matters drought, and so much more. Something that you really need to know about him. He'll tell us more. I'll tell you what it is. Stick around. Mheshimiwa, karibu to the show.
Thank you very much.
All right. You join us now when we're talking about matters DCI. But before I come back to you, let me just give you time to finish your statement when you're making, Wakili, the role and, the DCI and the state of, trust that wananchi have with the DCI.
Yes, the DCI, the Kenyans has really tried to play their politics right, even I put it, because now Kenyans have that deep faith that this year when DCI swings into action, then they see some development in terms of the people who are purported to have gone against the law will always be dealt. I think if you see in every press where injustice has happened or a crime has happened, you will see people calling upon the DCI. The DCI should get to the bottom of this. Yeah. It means Kenyans understand that we have an office called the DCI, and the DCI is their responsibility to investigate and then to actually ensure that these people end up being caught, which is a very interesting aspect in a particular dispensation.
Yes. Because
people being self-aware or knowing what bodies deal with what particular issue is a very good thing. Now, though there has also been issues between the DCI and the DPP, which happened, I think, really before the election, and then we were in a quandary whereby we didn't know where the DPP was told, now you're supposed to be able to draft the charges and be able to prosecute, and the DCI felt that their responsibilities were being usurped because they're the people who investigate, they're the people who are first called to the crime scene, they put all the paperwork in order. So they were going to look like they are just errand boys. And I think that's a responsibility they didn't want to take, and that brought a lot of conflicts.
Yes.
But constitutionally, that is how it's supposed to be, but the practicality of that is impossible.
You've raised a very important point, Wakili, and just before I bring in Mheshimiwa here, there is that bit of synergy, between the office of the DPP and the DCI. We remember at some point there was some kind of back and forth between Nurdin and Kinoti.
Yes.
Somebody was speaking from the left side of the hand, the other person was speaking from the right hand of the hand. You'd imagine how that would easily derail the flow of a case.
Yes. It actually brought a lot of commotion. It brought a lot of bad energy between these bodies, which are supposed to be acting in a manner that they understand that they are walking a journey together like a marriage.
Yes.
Now, when you have one party pulling aside, but that was precipitated by a judgment which came out of the court. And the court actually outlined what the Constitution says. And then it left to the bodies to figure it out. Rather, I think the judgment should have anticipated such a situation and then be able maybe to give them like a year to actually find a working balance, or in a way that they should be able to work not to offend the Constitution and be able to deliver within the time span so that the process is regularized. Because it just needs regularization to actually achieve the balance that which can work for Kenyans.
Mheshimiwa, at this particular point I'll bring you in. Let me get your point on there's an interview to get the next DCI boss starting today. But then, when you look at the counties generally, counties have been in a position where you'll find the EACC, the DCIs, in those offices doing the investigations, which is quite okay. I don't know what would be your take, and what do you think should be that person who should inherit Kinoti's office?
Thank you very much. I'll begin by saying I wish the best the 10 candidates who will be going through interviews today. I think the public has also been given an opportunity to contribute in this process by the invitation of a written memoranda to the panel. This will be a boost to ensure that we have that person who is also accepted by the public. Having said that, because 3 names will finally be submitted to the president,
yes.
It is our belief and our hope that whoever is going to be picked to run that office is going to run that office with a lot of integrity and goodwill for Kenyans. When counties hear about DCI, and many other offices,
exactly.
They think of an institution that is there, that has been weaponized, that is there to do witch hunt, against officers who are running various offices. And to be honest, those some of our agencies in our country have been weaponized. If the big man is not satisfied with you, you're not, singing to his or her tune, they use those offices, to fight members of parliament, the elected leaders or holders of various offices in our country. And when you hear the deputy president the other day say, DCI, you go back to Kiambu Road, I think that is as a result of the frustrations that elected leaders has gone through because of the DCI offices. So I think we should totally delink, DCI with politics, because once we combine, then the functions of that office will miss the point. Will miss the point. So it is my belief that they will work in good faith. They will do their investigations with good faith, but not combine it with politics.
Yes. And when you had, the last regime, a lot of innuendos were flying around left, right, and center, and I know Wakili can attest to that, at some point it was even so hard to access information and to that effect. Bwana DG, let me just put it that particular point. You're one of the youngest leaders in the country, and perhaps your case is motivating other leaders to get into elective positions. Let me start by saying this. You are the chair of the Deputy Council of Governors. What is that position like? So to start.
Thank you very much, and allow me to thank the people of Kajiado for giving me a second chance. When I was elected the first term, I was the youngest deputy governor in Kenya. Right now, I'm not the youngest.
You've given that baton to someone else.
Yeah, we now have young deputy governors than me, but let me appreciate the people of Kajiado and the Republic of Kenya for accepting the young people to take up leadership roles. And we're seeing an increase of young leaders being elected every day. That is very good for our country, and I think we're in the right direction. The last term I served as a vice chair of Deputy Governors Caucus, and this time round, I got an opportunity to be elected as a chair of Deputy Governors of Kenya. The Deputy Governors Caucus is part of the Council of Governors, but there are various issues that are so common, to the Deputy Governors alone. Those are issues that we need to follow it up and make sure that the position of Deputy Governor is respected, be able to also deliver services to people of Kenya. Also that position is respected, serves the purpose of that office. There are a number of things that we are battling with at the moment.
Before you get into that, what is your main role as the Deputy Governors Forum and your main role as the deputies to your bosses?
Number one, we ensure that we have given total support to our bosses to be able to fulfill the promises that they made to Kenyans.
Yes.
And the people, the very counties that we come from. Number two, we also we totally support devolution. So we put our voice to ensure that we strengthen devolution going forward. Those are just a few of the roles that we have.
Yes.
But we give flesh to the Council of Governors. We complement. We're not in competition with them.
Which is, and I know Wakili will also, come into this. You've had, some rough moments with your bosses.
Yes.
The latest one being of Kakamega, who said that they want to share 50-50 part of government. Is that the real situation at the counties? Now you are the deputy governor. What is the real demarcation between the governors and their deputies? Do you share power?
I think it depends because there are counties that their leaders had got pre-election arrangements.
Okay.
And when those pre-election agreements are signed, it is always important to honor those pre-election agreements after election. Where things stand sour is where an agreement has been written and the governor failed to honor that agreement.
Right.
I think the Kakamega case is not a problem, has not been a problem, because it was a pre-election agreement and the governor is compliant. So there is no issue. There is no issue. But we have some other counties that the governor and the deputy governor sign an agreement, but after election, the deputy governor is thrown under the bus.
Yes.
That is where things start falling apart.
Yes.
And I think it is good to remind our governors that whatever agreement that you agreed with your running mate, it is honorable.
Yes.
It is honorable to honor that agreement. It will save the county from, concentrating into battles and squabbles other than concentrating on service delivery.
Exactly.
Those are issues that can really derail service delivery.
Yes.
And I think as leaders of our great country, we should not be thinking about how do I assume power for myself, but rather we should be thinking, how can I be able to deliver services for my people?
But DG, is that the real situation? It sounds so easy, but practically speaking, is it possible?
That's why I'm
and that is why most of the governors of all had their issues. We had the issue of Machakos. The deputy governor was, midway was said, told step aside.
I think once we get elected, most of or some of governors no longer see a deputy governor as a running mate and a deputy, but they see as possible competitors.
Yes.
Maybe in the next election. So sometimes others think either by them thinking about it or their advisors advising them so that giving a deputy governor roles and encouraging him to be all over, and you are fattening an enemy who will oster you tomorrow.
Let's bring in Wakili here. Wakili, you've had this case quite several times. Based on what he's saying, some people would say that deputy governors never had any, definitive role in the constitution unless you're assigned by your boss. And that is why some of them would even say, you know what, I'm going to do whatever I'm being told by my boss. If not, I'm going to sit in an office, or perhaps once and for all, sit and wait for the end month and, do whatever I'm supposed to do. But legally speaking, don't you think now there's a time has come for some kind of roles to be stipulated clearly? This is your demarcation as a deputy governor, and this is your role as a governor.
Yes, I will want to agree with you, Victor, that indeed it has come to a time when we need to have a stop to all these squabbles. Because you realize for governance to actually work and to provide services for Wananchi, then the people at the head or at the top needs to cut down their drama, their issues of I don't know what I can call them, the internal issues, and then they be able to present a perfect picture to the public so that the public can be able to buy into the confidence that we have people who are working. Because other than that, for the deputy governor and the governors, we have seen a lot of intrigues which shouldn't be the case. Because if you have gone into an election with somebody, whatever arrangement as the deputy governors put it, you need to respect it as a governor. But then we also have a situation whereby we have some deputy governors who also become over-ambitious. So we did...
I don't know whether DG is one of them, you'll tell us.
We need to cut a balance by actually knowing before election what it is that is expected out of them. I like the way and the speed in which the president has tried to handle this, given that he also suffered a similar scenario. He has come out clear and said, we will not have this anymore. I will assign my deputy president some specific roles which will be executing. So if governors can be able to actually be able to tailor-make a working situation whereby deputy governor is told you'll be working on 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is your mandate. You need to execute it. And actually tangible roles. Some of them will be assigned roles which will be like they are errand boys, which is unfortunate. And in most cases, actually, I don't know whether you have realized this, Victor. You actually realize, and somebody was making a light joke that those governors who realize they don't have very strong papers, they chose very informed governor. But when you have such a think tank for a deputy governor, and then you just decide to give him roles which are very peripheral, if I can be able to use that word, then it becomes a joke. This person will feel wasted. We had a situation in the last dispensation where deputy governor actually had to go work from abroad for the entire period. And then shows back, says he wants to take the reins. That was interesting. That speaks to the aspect that
Let me ask you, are you in good terms with your boss?
Very well. I'm privileged to have one of the best bosses I've ever had. Governor Lenku. Governor Lenku is one of the best governors in Kenya.
You might be saying that because you're on television.
Not really. But I think Kenya knows the kind of relationship that we have. He has given me liberty. And I have also played my role well because I'm not in competition with my governor. I'm there to help him. I'm there to help him. And I think he has also, taken me with a lot of dignity and honor, and by that Kajiado has been able to deliver services to the people because of the relationship, the harmony that exists in Kajiado. But having said that, I think there is also a weakness in the law in terms of divining the roles of the deputy governor. Right now, we totally depend on our bosses. It is the boss to choose whether to assign you roles and to give you a free hand in government or not. What happens to those whom their bosses will limit them? There is no choice because the law has not given us very divine roles. I think there are only 3 roles that are recognized in law. because the first role is the deputy governor is the deputy CEO of a county. The other one is a deputy governor can, act in the absence of the governor. And the third one is found in the County Government Act, where it says a governor may assign a deputy governor a CC position. Those three roles that are recognized in law is not sufficient enough. One of the things that we're pushing as the Deputy Governor's Caucus is to ensure that we push for the roles of the Deputy Governor to be stipulated and well defined in law.
Right.
We want to pursue it through Parliament, and in this case, Senate. We're starting some engagements with senators to see how best they can be able to amend the County Government Act and add flesh to the roles of the deputy governor.
Okay. But DG, I'm told that you have some engagement, but I'll have to ask you this question. The drought situation in your country, in your county, for example, Kajiado is worst affected, moving to the northern part of Kenya, talk of Wajir, Garissa, Mandera, etc. What are you doing as a county to avert this situation?
Thank you very much. On 29th September, the governor called for a roundtable meeting because of the current situation in the county. We invited the national government, the county government, various partners, and NGOs just to come and discuss about the drought situation. A few weeks ago, Kajiado is at the alert stage, but I think we almost get into an emergency stage.
That is dangerous.
Which is dangerous. A lot of animals are dying and lives of people are at risk. Schools are almost closing because of food and water shortage. There is hunger for the people and for animals.
Yes.
We right now calling out for assistance. The county government has allocated a budget of 130 million to be able to mitigate the effects of this drought.
Yes.
We have already issued food stuff that amounts to 75 million. We have fed over 20,000 households. But there is great need for more a feeding program for human.
Yes.
And our animals need feeds. I think the NDMA has also done its bit through the national government. We have NGOs coming that has already honored their pledges, but more in the process. I think the national governments need to act very fast to mitigate the situation. The situation is so dire. We need water, we need feeds for human, we need feeds for animals. It is a terrible situation.
Deputy Governor, I'm told that we're running out of time and you're crossing over to our sister station, Radio Taifa. Perhaps you'll have time and answer this question. There have been some calls that the drought-stricken areas should sell their animals, to Kenya Meat Commission so that they can avert this, and even the money found now can be given to the farmers and even to the animal keepers. I don't know, what is your take on that? And finally, what would be the clarion call from you as a county? There have been some situations where some people say that counties should drill more boreholes to those counties so that when time comes, that then people will not be found flat-footed. Perhaps you can answer that when you cross over to the radio section. All right, let's stop it at that particular point. I'll release the two gentlemen. That's the Deputy Governor of Kajiado County, Martin Mosisho, and Wakili Gibson Gesore. We take a break at that particular point, then I'll give them time to cross over to the Kiswahili section. Follow them there for more. Good morning.
In the heart of Zimmerman Estate in Nairobi lies Brook Center for the Deaf and Autistic Children, a registered charitable organization that takes care of children with special needs. For Timothy, the center was born out of passion to provide education to special and needy cases, an initiative that was inspired by what he terms as a painful personal experience.
It was an uncle, yeah. So, a young person growing up, he had autism. So one day, of course, he used to walk around, go to the nearby markets, come back. So at some point in time, as he grew up, he went and never came back. Up to now, it's more than 25 years. So it's very tragic.
Timothy says his missing uncle was showing signs and symptoms, but those days disabilities were generally attached to culture, superstitious beliefs, and traditions.
Children with autism are loners, they're hyperactive. Some have learning disabilities, others have sleeping disorders, intellectual problems. Others have different types of sensitivities.
It was this experience that triggered Timothy's quest to sensitize the community on people living with disabilities, particularly children with autism.
Throughout my life, there's this set objective to ensure that I bridge the gap, to ensure that children who live with special needs never get missing, and they should always find safe custody for them and also ensure they rehabilitate to become better people.
With proper diagnosis and training through therapy, most conditions can be handled.
Not just therapies, interventions, because of course a therapist will be involved. There will be an orthopedic, someone who is a specialist with the bones, to be able to do proper assessments for assistive devices like the walking aids, the standing aid, the sitting aid, and they overcome.
Timothy cares for these vulnerable children with the help of volunteer doctors, social workers, in addition to the in-house therapists, nurses, trained caregivers, and special education teachers.
In this place, you don't focus on perfection, you focus on progress. So progress means I could be able to stand, but I couldn't be able to make a step. But now I can step. And we've worked with more than 427 children, successfully reintegrated back to communities.
There are more than 1 billion people with some form of disability, accounting for 15% of the world population, according to the United Nations. Closer home, persons with disabilities make up 2.2% of the Kenyan population.
For most of the world, October is the month that has been set aside to make people aware of children with learning disabilities. But for Timothy Liani, this is his daily passion, and it is his hope that one day children living with special needs will be able to access free healthcare and education. Reporting for KBC from Zimmerman in Nairobi County, I'm Nisi Imano.
Dr. Julius Gikonyo Kiano was born in June 1926 in Githiga Village, Kangema, Murang'a District, then Fort Hall District in central Kenya. After studying abroad, he returned to Kenya in 1956 and worked at the Royal Technical College, now the University of Nairobi, as the first African lecturer teaching economics and constitutional law. He would later join politics in 1958 and elected to the Legislative Council LegCo to represent Central Province South. In 1963, he was elected to the House of Representatives as the Member of Parliament for Kangema and appointed Minister for Commerce and Industry. During his tenure, the ministry worked out a program that would enable small-scale African traders to buy goods at wholesale prices. To encourage Kenyan Africans to get involved in trade and commerce, the minister traveled across the country opening African shops and businesses. In 1964, at a Commonwealth Trade Ministers' Conference, Kiano called for an international trade and development organization under the United Nations. Years later, the efforts bore fruits as the Geneva-based United Nations Conference on Trade and Development UNCTAD was born, and in 1976 he vied unsuccessfully to become its executive director. His reshuffle to the Ministry of Labour would come in 1965. A year later, he was elected Member of Parliament for Kiharu, a seat he retained in 1969 and 1974. In January 1968, he was appointed Minister for Education, and in December 1969, he was moved to the Ministry of Local Government. Following the assassination of the Minister for Constitutional Affairs, Tom Joseph Mboya, in 1969, Dr. Kiano described the crime as the darkest hour and most shocking blot on Kenya's history since independence. We feature the man who, alongside he and Mboya, had since 1959 worked closely in organizing the student airlifts to the USA that formed the core of the country's future public service since 1959. At the time, he was Minister for Education and was later moved to the Ministry of Local Government. Later in the 70s, Dr. Kiano returned to the expanded Ministry of Commerce and Industry before moving to the Ministry of Water Development in 1976, earning himself a tag of the most shuffled cabinet minister in President Jomo Kenyatta's government. In 1977, as Minister for Water, he was elected chairman of the steering committee of the United Nations Water Conference in Argentina, which was the beginning of the high-profile involvement in environmental issues. He also led Kenya's delegation to the UNEP Governing Council meetings in 1978 and 1979. In 1980, Kiano was appointed Managing Director of the Industrial Development Bank. Kiano's last attempt to return to politics was in 1989, where he lost in a by-election occasioned by the expulsion of Kenneth Matiba from KANU. Although Kiano was the front-runner right from the early stages of the election, he lost the bid for the Kiharu parliamentary seat to his former employee, Jidraf Mwero. In December 1989, Kiano was elected unopposed as the Murang'a KANU branch chairman. He lost again to Matiba during the multi-party general election of 1992, after which President Daniel Arap Moi appointed him chairman of the state-owned Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, KBC. He died in August 2003, aged 77.
Are you a holder of unclaimed financial assets? Take advantage of the Finance Act 2022 moratorium on penalties and interests. Surrender any unclaimed financial assets in your possession today. Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Receive, safeguard, reunite.
with my family seated. Can I listen to that music with my father, with my mother seated together? Can we listen to that music together?
Just remove your father from the equation. Kila mtu akae kando. We listen to Zuchu. Everybody, when you go to TikTok, a 13-year-old is saying, what is it called?
Sukari.
Yeah, not even sukari. This song about nyumba ndogo.
Is it music supposed to be food for the heart?
Okay, I'm not too sure about that. Is co-parenting working? Is it a fad? Is it something that we're just glorifying? I am not your enemy. You're not my enemy. We just need to live separately so that and then raise this child together. You see, it doesn't have to be toxic for you to. So what's that? It's conscious uncoupling.
So do you think you would work with Otile Brown again if things were different right now?
Exactly 8 days since the ban on GMO was lifted by the current president. Still a lot of conversations out here in respect to the impact of this genetically modified organisms to our health and ultimately the environment. But just what has been done out there in terms of research, and what exactly is the impact of this kind of foods to our health, to our environment, and why necessarily lift it at this point? This is what you're set to converse in the next 40 minutes or so with my guest who's here to help us understand more about that. That is Daniel Wanjuki, who is the director, EcoSave Africa. Karibu sana to the program, sir.
Asante sana. It's a pleasure being your guest.
Thank you so much. Yeah. 8 days later, quick reactions on that ban.
The ban
on lifting of that ban, so to speak.
The lifting of the ban should not have taken place. And we're coming from a situation where we actually have no reason to do that. There's no evidence that should change our position in 2012. The position that the cabinet took in 2012 was very good. It was a permanent, it should have been a permanent ban, but lifting it on the first day of the new government sitting is very criminal. Actually, there's no way, nobody had an agenda for that meeting.
Are those heavy words you're using?
Yeah, I'm very confident because I know the president is a scientist, and he's actually, I did botany and zoology like he did. I did environmental science like he did for masters. I will be pursuing my same course, so I know I'm speaking to a person who I can communicate with the same language without even trying to beat about the bush. The ban should not take place because it was not. The lifting of the ban is not based on any scientific evidence that is new that we can use as evidence for overturning the area ban. The reason for being this so strong on this is because the GMO, the conversation of the GMO is very fluid. Nobody has any hard facts on its efficacy, on its environmental impact, and finally I would say, as an environmentalist, that we should apply what we call the precautionary principle, which says that in the lack of evidence that this is not good or it is not bad, then you just avoid it on that basis only. So the ban should not have been done. And I was trying to say that the first sitting of the cabinet could not have had such a heavy agenda that would be. They had not discussed it the previous week, and that day they were able to lift the ban. So I think it's someone who squeezed that into the agenda. And being the first day, everybody had butterflies sitting on that long table, and the GMO ban was lifted.
Let me pick you on that note, that on the first day of cabinet, of course you know that this is the outgoing cabinet, but then on that first day of sitting, just as you've said, that this was such a heavy matter that need not to have been perhaps decided at such a point. But again, also remember that this comes on the backdrop of the issues of drought that we are facing as a country, the issues of food security. We are currently talking about 23 counties and this number is increasing. In fact, last week, Governor Dadu talked about how some Kenyans in the northern part of the country would have to wait a little bit longer before then this cash transfers can get to them. And we also know that the state has been really so much in trying to ensure they help those that have really been affected by issues of food security, particularly in the drought-ravaging counties. So this is part of what was being thought about as they were lifting this ban. So then why would you say that it was such a hurried decision, taking cognizant of the effects of drought?
The reason I would say that the GMO has no relationship completely with the situation in Northeastern, and there is no way that GMO is going to turn that story around. The drought in Northeastern is because of a lack of use of resources that would otherwise have been used to ameliorate or make the drought less severe. We have the Tana River still flowing into the Indian Ocean with all the nutrients from the Mount Kenya region. All the fertilizer that we use ends up in the ocean, and it passes through the Northeastern. It passes through Garissa. Why haven't you diverted those rivers into Northeastern? It would take Kenya Pipeline Company maybe a year to distribute water in the northern part of Kenya and use irrigation for our food security. We have Garana Kuraru project. Currently, Moribad, it had a lot of hopes. We had a lot of hopes on that. It was growing normal maize. Then you come and tell us that you have a maize variety that would actually survive the drought. If they do that, if they can today go plant maize in Taita Taveta, in Wajir, the GMO maize, and it takes shoot, it grows, gives us a crop, I'll drop my opposition for the ban. But the GMO was meant, the GMO maize, for example, because that's one of the reasons why we are going to that direction, was meant to bridge the gap between years when we had this short rainfall that was not adequate for our normal crops. So that's such that I come from Laikipia, and maize requires about 2,200 millimeters of rainfall per year for a crop to grow. It has dropped to 1,600 millimeters per year around 1990, 1995. But in the last few years, it's not about short rainfalls. There's no rain. Rain didn't come in April. Whatever you planted would just rotted. Even if it was GMO maize, it was still rot in the farm.
Due to the absence of
because
rain.
there's no rainfall at all. So we are fixing a problem which the GMO would have fixed the situation when we had maize without enough rainfall. And so the maize would grow, and just before it shoots, the tassels come out, the rainfall would drop. So a GMO maize which would take 90 days instead of 120 days would have been appropriate. Then I would say that already in Kenya we have Katumani maize, which was very good. It did 70 days, and you could eat mutungo on it. The roast maize or the green maize, that is. But nobody's talking about Katumani. Nobody's talking about getting water from our rivers, Nairobi River here, into areas of Makueni where we could grow maize or sorghum or cassava. We're being told to grow GMO maize, whose seed has to be bought, whose insecticides, the one you use, is only one company that will supply, whose seed you cannot give to your neighbor. The remainder of your seeds you can't give to your neighbor because he has to have a contract with the supplier in the US to be allowed to grow that maize. We have a situation in India where a farmer was actually taken to court for giving potato seeds to his neighbor to grow. And so these are controlled seeds. And just by growing that potato, and you are not allowed to do it, you actually find yourself in court. In Africa, we've been borrowing seeds from your neighbor. If you didn't get your crop well, or you could get a better variety from your neighbor. But what is being proposed at a GMO is a complete change. It's very capitalistic, very commercialization of seeds, and it's not going to help us. Like I said, there's nothing we are going to get from the GMO. It is too late to get into the bandwagon for GMO, the trials that have been done, there's nothing showing that we are going to get better by involving GMO technology in our farming. Yeah.
And I'd like you to elucidate on that issue just a bit further for proper context and understanding. That you've also given a very good example that when you come down to Africa, we are more of a community than living individualistic kind of lives. And yes, you say that we also so much used to giving. I'll be having like potato seeds, I'll be having like maize seeds. It's easy for me to give a neighbor who's the next farmer next door. So when you talked about GMO seeds, you can't give out. Why is that? Why is there a restriction in that aspect?
Number one is because GMO is like you have forced two organisms to form a union. The moment you plant that maize, the next crop, the plant actually reorganizes itself, and actually the next crop you can't plant that seed. It's called hybrid failure. The first hybrid, it's called a fan. It's good, and when you plant, you can get up to 4 tons of maize in an acre. But if you take that seed and plant it, the crop will be a quarter of what was in the first instance, because it's okay, what I've described as hybrid failure. There's no, they don't agree. Like the organism that is formed after the first crop, it's completely now a character of what was used to make the first plant, but with very poor characteristics. So the other thing is you must have a contract to grow that seed. The other fact is that you actually you don't require a neighbor near you, because your maize is going to be contaminated. The neighbor's maize will be contaminated by the GMO pollen from the GMO plant. In fact, in countries where they grow, you would have to have about 3 to 5 kilometers buffer zone, so that there's no weed that can blow the pollen to your neighbor. That's what's required. But here in Africa, our plots are on quarter acre. That's like you go to Muranga, if someone is growing a GMO crop in your neighborhood, all the village maize will be changed. That seed will be affected. And it's being affected with a material that is not suitable even for human consumption. Most of these countries where GMO is coming from, they use maize they call it corn, for feeding into animals, feeding. They don't eat directly the maize. But here in Africa, ugali is our staple food. So you're actually taking on that material that you are not even sure you are able to digest. Nobody has checked whether our digestive system is able to digest that GMO.
So you're saying there needed to be more research that needed to have been done before? Okay,
correct.
Beforehand. All right, well said. I mean, the first country in East Africa, 8th in the African continent, joining a list of 30 other countries across the globe who have authorized and put a green flag to GMOs. But then there was a reluctance to lift that ban 10 years back. Fast forward, this has now happened. And I had thought it was because of the issues of drought, because that was also largely what came out in that particular meeting, but you've sort of like ravaged that. So then why the reluctance then and the acceptance now, from your point of standing?
Having been part of the first, the ban.
Yeah.
There's a paper we wrote, and this was describing the possibility, what you are calling the precautionary principle, the fear that what is going to come out of the GMO is not good for us. Besides the commercial aspect, which you have said, the seeds will be sold every other year, the pesticides will be sold by the company. Only that company can sell that. And that some of the chemicals they
and
are
this company is not domiciled in Kenya?
Some of them may be, like we have one of the companies which was called Monsanto, was bought by a company which is here in Kenya. I think they're in Ruaraka. Internationally it was bought. So it means that if you want those seeds here in Kenya, we will get just from somewhere in Nairobi. I'm avoiding mentioning their names. But when you come to the supply of those seeds, there is a very high likelihood that our farmers would not have any possibility of being independent.
I hear you. Yeah. And that's a good place to want to pick this conversation next time, because we need to now cross over to Westlands. That is a exchange building where our president is there. But I just want you to hang on there, because we'll pick it up at that point. There's still a lot to converse on the issue and the aspect of GMO. But that is a good place to end this conversation ultimately. I now want us to cross over to the exchange building, that is 55 Westlands Road, where our very own president is gracing that particular event. That is the bell ringing ceremony, launching of the enhanced NSC marketplace. So let's just cross over there, take a listen.
Tumkaribishe sasa Mheshimiwa Rais anapoungana nasi. Tumkaribishe kwa makofi jameni. Welcome Your Excellency sir. Karibu sana Your Excellency.